One of the most common requests we get all the time is, hey, we want to run ads. Can you help us get started? How do we start running ads? When do I know if I'm ready to start running ads? And so in this video, I wanted to break down exactly why it's important to understand when you're ready to run paid ads, what to expect when you first start running ads, and then when to know if you're actually ready, because everybody's got different thresholds. There's going to be a couple of questions that are important to pose to yourself about if you're ready to actually start running paid ads, because I cannot tell you, especially in the early days, how many people we worked with that weren't truly ready to run paid ads or that had expectations that were not correct when going to run paid ads for the first time. So number one is, why is it important for you to understand what being ready for paid ads looks like? When you first start running paid ads, especially in the information space, but really it doesn't matter the business, you have to understand that you are putting your money in to a platform like Meta with no guarantee of you getting that money back. You are essentially walking into a casino, pretend there's a little roulette table, and gambling your money. And when you work with an advertiser like us or an agency like us, or you've consumed a bunch of videos, all you're really doing is learning how to count cards at the end of the day. But when it's all said and done, advertising is a form of gambling. Have to be willing to burn money. And if you're in this high ticket space, you have to be willing to burn more than I guarantee you're probably comfortable with if you've never done this before. And so that's why asking yourself this question is so important, because if you do not have the emotional stability to be able to front a decent sum of cash with no guarantee of you returning a single dollar, I won't necessarily say that paid ads is the best thing for you. Now, if you have a business partner that can stomach it and they're going to be in charge of regulating your emotions, great. But if you are at a point where you're like, I don't know if I'm ready to spend 30 grand in a month on paid advertising, be cautious. Because again, it's a lot more emotional than organic. If you've built a business off the back of organic content, typically that means you haven't paid for a single lead, you haven't paid for a single sales call, only closed deals from your closers. Paid ads is different. And the other thing is, paid ads oftentimes can make up, depending on the business, 30% of your budget, of your entire business's budget could go towards paid ads. That's why we take it so seriously on our end, because again, we're responsible for damn near 30% of your budget. Now, in ideal scenarios, it's closer to like 15 to 25%, but in some cases, 30% is very standard at scaled levels of spend. So that is why it's important to really understand and ask yourself, am I truly ready for ads? Now, in order for you to know that you're ready, there's going to be a couple of questions that you need to be asking yourself. But before we get into that, it's important that you understand what's actually happening when you do go to run paid ads. So as much as I said, it's like a casino, which it is, at the end of the day, all you're doing is paying for data. All paid advertising is you giving your money to Mark Zuckerberg, giving your money to Google so that you can get data on what's currently not working so that you can fix it, solve the problem, and then spend more money into something that works more. That's it. Very, very straightforward. And so when running paid ads, all that we're doing is we're putting money in and we're seeing what's broken. Is it my CPMs that need to be fixed? Is it my click-through rate? Is it my show rate? Is it my close rate? Is it my collection rate? Am I not collecting enough cash up front? Am I putting everybody on payment plans, breaking even in month one, and then getting fucked from there on out? What are the metrics? What's broken? What's working? What needs to be improved? What could be improved? What is honestly perfect? What's good to go already? All I'm doing with paid ads when I first launch is I'm just paying to get this money. And what this explains is a concept, very simply put, that's called the burn rate. And I'm pretty sure this is what Jeremy Haynes calls it. And this is where I picked it up from, or maybe I mimicked it. But this graph is something I've taken directly from him, and he explains this way better than I do. But it's called the burn rate. And what this essentially is from when you start running paid ads to when you break even, you are paying to solve problems. So problem 1, problem 2, problem 3, problem 4. And all I'm doing is, as I solve these problems, yes, I'm spending more money, but eventually I hit a point where, okay, I'm starting to make money. And then as I spend more money, I break past this break even point, and then boom. Now all of a sudden I can really scale that campaign. I can start generating revenue because I'm getting a solid return on my ad spend. That is all this is I'm putting money in to solve for, again, this could be CPM, CTR, show rate, close rate, etc. I'm putting money in to solve for one of these metrics or multiple of these metrics to then get to a point where my campaign is profitable. And so it's very common to run month 1 or the first 2 weeks at a 0.5x return on your ad spend. And then month 2, you'll run at like a 1.0x. And then month 3, you'll run at a 3x. And then month 4, maybe you run at a 5x. All we're doing over time is solving the problems that need to get solved, because again, this could be a CPM thing that causes us to lift. This could be a CTR. This could be a show rate issue. And each one of these solutions causes my ROAS to increase on the next round. That is like the core principle of running paid ads, is all I'm doing is buying data. And so the important thing to ask yourself is, when do I know if I'm ready? How do I know if I'm ready? This is very, very straightforward. There are 2 scenarios. Number 1, I've got enough cash flow to be able to afford spending money on paid ads and not really stress about the burn. That's the first thing. Number 2 is if I have enough in reserves to do without thinking. It's like Most common way I can describe this, or best way I can describe this, is when you walk into a casino, you need to have a gambling budget that you are okay with losing. You cannot expect to walk into a casino and make money with the money that you could bring in there. You have to expect to lose this. You need to come into paid advertising with the same mentality. I may lose this money. I don't care if you've worked with past marketing agencies either, or you've had past marketers that drop the ball. You need to be looking at, okay, let's say you had an old agency, you bring in a new one. And if you're curious to learn what that looks like, you're curious to learn about how we help clients run paid ads for their information product or other businesses, there's gonna be a link below. You can book a call to speak with myself. Remember, the team will run you through everything you need to know. A big thing to note is we do have a minimum ad spend budget requirement, which is either asked in the form or we'll ask on the sales call. So just be aware of that, but feel free to book that call. Regardless, if we're going from old agency to new agency, and let's say we're the new agency, yeah, we're gonna look at the old agency, but we can't assume that any of that shit was even right. It's gonna give us some data, it's gonna help us out a little bit, maybe we'll have some sales calls, but at the end of the day, this doesn't necessarily always translate to the next step. So just because you've spent money on paid ads before doesn't necessarily mean it was even worth the money that you spent, especially if you weren't tracking that data. If you don't know which ads brought in which leads, if you don't know what the bottlenecks were in the funnel, if you don't know really anything and you just kind of put money in and expect to get money out, similar to how organic content works, you've got a real problem. And so that's why, again, you need to be willing to pretty much light your money on fire and burn it in that month one. Because what the timelines typically will look like is day 0 to day 30 is when you solve some of the relatively bigger problems. Not necessarily always the biggest problems, but you begin to solve problems. This is where in most cases we see people get to a 1.0 or in some cases like a 2.0, but we're not looking for a crazy good ROAS in the first month. Now from the 30-day to the 60-day mark, this is typically where we'll see a 3.0, 4.0, etc. And it'll begin to increase. And then from the 90-day period, that's when we really can start to scale our ad spend budgets. But this is what to expect. When we take on a client, we have a 90-day minimum contract because we need to be able to see, especially if we're running paid ads, what does month 1 look like? What does month 2 look like? What does month 3 look like? Now, in some cases, you'll realize like, oh, my offer needs fixing, or there's something early on that needs to get fixed, and that can cause other situations to arise, which I won't cover in this video. Again, you can book that call to figure out what's going on where you're currently at. But again, you got to expect that over the course of 90 days, you'll finally be able to scale. You can't expect to do it in month 1. Some people can. If you have a huge organic presence, go ahead. We worked under an agency as a media buyer for a client that had around 2.7 million followers at the time. Guy ran his 7x ROAS on his account, and it was, I mean, the ads were all right, but it was just a lead form funnel. Like, there was nothing fancy. Dude was shit money because he had a really strong organic. And so there are certain cases where you can start off fresh. If you're starting 100% cold, you've got no organic, no presence online, expect this roughly 90-day period. In some cases, we've seen 6 months if clients are really willing to stick it out. Like, we have a client right now, which we've worked with for damn near a year, and we've had some profitable months, but huge sales team issue that took forever to solve. Just now solved it. Now we're really beginning to push up ad spend. So understanding this is the other important thing. The last thing that's necessary to wrap your head around with paid ads is as you go to spend more money, your ROAS will decrease to a certain extent. Now, it's not going to look like this graph, but you need to understand, and there's a video on my channel you can check out, I'll link it somewhere here, about understanding marketing angles, and it addresses this concept of TAM. You can only spend so much money with ads until they begin to get you diminishing returns, meaning you are spending so much that the existing audience cannot keep up. And even if I refresh ads at an aggressive rate, I'm still not able to hit all of those people. That's okay. That just means you need to change some things in your funnel, or you need to launch new messaging. But what this should not cause you to do is if I'm at a 7x ROAS and I triple my ad spend and I go down to a 3x ROAS, I need to keep scaling the campaign. I need to have a base level where this is the minimum amount of money or the minimum ROAS that I need to make. But at the end of the day, if I drop from a 7 to a 3, but I am still profitable and my business is still making more net profit than it was the month before, then I need to be spending more money. So many people get hyper fixated on this ROAS metric, but they do not think about the amount of money that's hitting their account. Are you making more month over month? And is the business at a point that you can still handle? Are you overwhelmed because you've just bloated the fuck out of your organization, or are you good? So keeping that in mind is one of the most important things when running paid ads. The very last thing I'll say with paid advertising in general, especially in the high ticket space, you have to be willing to deal with a ton of volatility in your result volume. Meaning there will be some days if you're spending 5K a day where you get 3 calls booked, and then the next day you get 40 calls booked. And then the next day, maybe you get 15. And then the day after, you get 27. This, like, volatility is a part of the game. You need to learn, especially in paid ads, to zoom out and look at a longer time horizon, because it allows you to predict performance better and it allows you to stomach those changes. So that's the last thing I'll say. And again, hopefully this video explained to you guys why it's important for you to ask yourself if you're ready for paid ads, when to know if you're ready. Typically, we recommend like a 15 to a 30K test budget in month 1 if you're globally advertising. If you're like a local service-based business, that's a whole nother combo that we can have. But again, 15 to 30K is usually the base for like high ticket things, anything over 3 to 5 grand. But hopefully this video again covered what you need to know, what questions you should be asking yourself about getting started with running paid ads. Like I said, if you like stuff like this, if you want to see more, drop a comment below. Let me know what you want to see more of. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, book a call, and I'll see you in the next one.